Morning Year 11. So yesterday we started having a look at paper 2 question 5. So can you remember how many marks paper 2 question 5 is going to be worth? And can you remember what the question is going to ask you to do? 5 minutes to answer those questions for me. Okay then, so hopefully you've had a go at those questions. So how many marks was paper 2 question 5 worth? Well, it's worth 40 marks, okay? There are 24 marks available for content and organisation, and then 16 for spelling, punctuation and grammar. So exactly the same as paper 1 question 5. So what does this question ask you to do? Well, it's going to ask you to either write a letter, speech, article, information for a leaflet or an essay on a specific topic for a specific purpose. So yesterday we had a think about which purposes you could be asked to write for. Today we're going to focus on the different layouts of those different texts. Just as a reminder, this is one of the sheets that we looked at yesterday. So here is a quick reminder as to the different purposes you could be asked to write for. So you could be asked to write to explain, write to argue, write to persuade, or write to instruct or advise. And then there was the range of forms that can be set, so the type of text they're going to ask you to write. So yesterday we had a look at gapping the question. So the first thing you need to know is its genre, so what type of text you're writing. So that is what we're going to focus on today. So in terms of the basics, these are the basic layout presentational features that the examiner is going to expect to see from you for each of these different texts. Now, the reason that it's really important for us to go over them is because not all of them are used in the way that we would imagine them to be. So, for example, an article would usually have pictures in it. It would usually be set out into columns. But actually, the examiners aren't looking for that. They're looking for these key presentational features that are on this slide. So what I've done on the next slide is I've created a walkthrough of each of the layouts, and I've laid it out on the page how we would expect to see it in the exam. So this is just kind of a basic idea as to what they're looking for. The next slide is going to help you and talk you through each of these different layouts. You are going to need to write down these points, so you might want to write them down basically as they are now and then go into more detail, obviously, as I have done in the next couple of slides, or you might just want to wait for the next couple of slides. It's entirely up to you. Once you've finished watching the next video, that's all I'm going to ask you to do for this lesson, so you just need to answer the Show My Homework quiz to complete this lesson. Thank you very much, and I will see you next week. Okay then, Year 11. So what I'm going to show you in this video is the different layouts that you would be expected to use in the essay, well, in this exam question, okay? So we're looking at paper 2 question 5. It's worth 40 marks, and it's really important they're looking for you to be able to lay out your piece of writing in the correct way. Now, it's not going to the extremes of drawing pictures, folding your page, adding colour, because obviously you won't have the time to do that in an exam. But what they are looking for is your ability to use some of the key presentational features that are expected. Okay, so what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to follow along with me, and you're going to need to draw these out in your book exactly like I do. Okay, so to start off with, we are going to have a look at an article layout. Okay. So an article is one of the examiner's favourites. They have put it in quite a lot of the recent exams, okay, and they're looking for just a couple of features really. So the first thing they're looking for is a headline or a title. Now, obviously, the idea is that this is going to be, you know, really kind of grabbing. It's going to grab the reader's attention. It's going to make them want to read your article. It's going to really get them involved. So we might use a rhetorical question in it. We might use alliteration in it. We might use emotive language in it. The idea is that it's the first thing the reader is going to see, so it's going to have to grab them. So maybe if we think back to the question that we had a look at yesterday, we could use snow. Is it really as beautiful as it seems? Okay, and obviously in your exam you don't need to go over it and build it up, you know, and make it bold and stand out. All you need to do is just leave a line so that they know that that's what it is. The second thing they're going to be looking for is kind of a little bit of information about what your article is going to look at, okay? Because obviously someone might then start to read it and you need to keep them gripped to continue reading. So we're going to call this bit, so like basic summary. Okay, and it only needs to be a sentence. So, scientists have suggested that the aesthetic value of snow outweighs its dangers. However, I disagree. Read on to find out why. Okay, so the reader's going to know exactly what it is I'm talking about. They've got a bit of an insight into the argument that I'm having a look at, and they know my opinion straight away. Then after that, it's just about using paragraphs to help the reader make their way through your article. So obviously the idea is you would introduce your topic, you would develop your argument, and then you would use your closing statements. Okay. So as regards layout, really, the only thing they're looking for is this here. So the headline or the title, that basic summary that's going to hook your reader in, and then your use of paragraphs. Obviously, within what you're writing, you'll use language features and persuasive writing devices, and that's where you'll hone in on the purpose. But in terms of what they're looking in how your page is going to look, this is it. You don't need to write in columns. They're not going to expect you to do that. You don't need to draw pictures. There won't be extra marks available for either of those things. Okay, so it just needs to be nice and straightforward. Headline, title, basic summary, and then paragraphs that are well organized and well thought out. So that is our article. Okay, so the second one we're going to have a think about is the letter layout. Now, obviously, in modern society, letters are not written as much as they used to be. So you probably may never have written a letter in your life, but I'm pretty sure you must have received one at some point. So there's a few more presentational features to a letter than there are to an article. And again, letters do seem to be a favourite of the exam board, okay? So the first thing you should do on a letter is you should put your address on the right hand side. Okay, so I'm going to put 72 Parkway, Alfreton, Derbyshire, DE55 7BU. Okay, that's a made up address. In the exam, if you're really stunted, just write your address down. Okay, nobody's going to come and find you. It's not. There's obviously data protection in place. So your address, you as the sender, is going to go on the right hand side. Then on the left hand side, one line below that, you are going to include their address. So who you are sending this to. So let's pretend that I am sending this to a prospective employer. So let's say that I am applying for a job at McDonald's in Somercotes. So I'm going to put McDonald's, Somercotes. It's obviously in Somercotes, it's Derbyshire, DE55 89Q. Okay, again, these can be made up. In the exam, they might give you specific people that you're writing to, so you might get help on it. Otherwise, it's just about making it up. But it's really important that you know your address has to go on the right, their address has to go on the left, because then obviously you start your letter and it's to them. The other thing is one line underneath that, you're going to put the date. So I'll go with today's date. And it's always best to write the full date because obviously it's a formal letter you're writing. So those are 3 key structural features that they'll be looking for in a letter. Okay, after that, again, it becomes a little bit more straightforward. So you obviously have to start your letter off with dear. Now, dependent upon the task that you've been given, they may tell you who you need to send the letter to. So it might be a specific person. So it might be Mr. Johnson. Okay. However, if I don't know their name, then I use sir or madam as a manner of being polite. Okay. So you must always use dear to start off your letter because it's formal. Okay. If you use to, that makes it informal. Then obviously you are going to use your paragraphs again. So you're going to write one, an introduction. So you're going to state why you are writing. Then you are going to develop your argument. And then you are going to conclude and thank them for their time. And again, there is a little bit of a difference to the way that you end a letter off. Okay, so you can use yours sincerely or yours faithfully. Now, again, it depends upon who you are writing to as to which one of these use. So we remember that S's never meet. So if you've used sir or madam, because it's sir, S and S can't meet, so that means you use faithfully. Okay. And then if you do know their name, so Mr. Johnson, that is when you will use sincerely. And again, it's just about the meaning behind those words. So faithfully, you don't really know them, but you know you're signing this off as it being an honest representation as to who you are as a person. Whereas sincerely means that it's got a little bit more kind of emotion behind it. You're being very specific in what you are sending. Okay, so that is what they'd be expecting for your letter. So your address here, their address here, the date, dear, paragraphs, and then the signing off. Okay, so I would say the article and the letter are the ones that have the most layout features. They're probably the most difficult in terms of remembering where everything goes on the page. After that, I would say the leaflet is the next part along. Now you'll notice that it isn't actually a leaflet, it's information for a leaflet, and that's because they specifically don't want students to be folding up their pages, adding colour in, adding images in the exam. Okay, they just want you to use the basic information. So again, you would have a title as to what your leaflet is about. So it could be about how to stop smoking. Okay. They would then expect to see you using subheadings. So you might think about the benefits of stopping smoking. And then they'll also be looking for you to use paragraphs to organise your ideas. So once I'd written about the benefits of smoking, that's the subheading, I would then go on to explain it so you know you'll have more energy. You'll be less likely to develop breathing problems. You can protect your teeth and hands. Okay, and so forth. So those are the key features they'd be looking at for that leaflet information. So a title, so what is the leaflet about, and then a subheading to show what each paragraph would be about, and then you'd obviously write the information fully for each of the paragraphs. Okay, so that's a leaflet. The next one is a speech. Again, you will have done quite a lot in year 9 about speeches and year 8, and it doesn't require much in terms of actual structure. So the main things they're looking out for is an introductory paragraph. So obviously that's where you need to state what your speech is about. Then you are going to have your main arguments. So that's where you're going to use many different paragraphs to develop your point. Okay, and then you are going to have a conclusion paragraph, and that's where you're going to thank the listener for listening. So nice and straightforward, really. They're just looking for your ability to be able to organise paragraphs on the speech. And then finally, the essay. Now, they've never asked for an essay, but that doesn't mean that they won't. Okay. But essentially, an essay is exactly what you write every time you do a piece of literature work. So that introduction, the main body, and then your conclusion. And again, that main body will separate into several different paragraphs, because obviously it's about developing your argument on whatever has been said. So those are all of the different types of texts you could get asked to have a look at in the exam, and those are the layout features, the presentational features that the examiner will be looking for. So they're looking for your ability to be able to write for the correct purpose, write for the correct tone, but they're also looking for your ability to be able to set it out correctly in your books as well. Now, obviously, yes, this has only taken me 13 minutes to record, but I assume it's going to take you a lot longer to be able to copy it out and make sure that you've got all of these in your book. So this is all I'm going to ask you to do this lesson. Please make sure that you have got all of this information written into your books, because it's going to be really important for revision and for us getting you ready for those mock exams when you're back in the academy.